Hello, my name is Justin Shaw, and this is part 2 of modeling unwrapping the 6 objects and texturing. Go to 3ds Max. We modeled the objects in our last episode, and now we're going to unwrap them or lay them out flat. We're going to start with the easiest one first. We're going to go to this plane. We want it to be this rocky texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Modify Panel, down, Unwrap Uvw. I'm just going to select it. 1, 2, 3, or polygons, edge, verts, edge, polygon. Open UV editor. And this one is already perfect. It's a big square. I'm going to actually scoot it up here though. It'll make sense in a second. Whatever is in this will show up on this object. So if I pick a picture like this object here, and I put this on it, it's going to show that picture. And I want to put all these objects on one texture because they're so small and simple. And so I can put them all in here and do it in Photoshop. So I'm just going to scoop this one up here because every one I unwrap is going to be placed here, and I don't want them on top of each other. I'm going to save this unwrap by right-clicking, convert to editable poly. Now I'm going to go to this box, and I'm going to go to Unwrap Uvw, Polygons. Now these green lines are 3ds Max trying to figure out how to unwrap this box automatically. It usually does a pretty bad job. I'm going to hit Open UV Editor. And if you look, this face is actually on top of the others. So each one of these will be showing the same picture of the same thing. And that's not what we want. I mean, we would want it because that's what this texture is doing, or our reference, but it's got a face here and a face here. It's got a couple of different ones. So I'm going to unwrap this the way that we unwrap most cubes. I'm going to hit Alt-Q to isolate it. So it's only this box. And I'm going to hide its automatic seams. So I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go to Peel Seams, Map Seams. The map seams are the ones that they generated. I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to press 2 to go to my edges. And I'm going to tell 3ds Max where to cut this object. Scoot this out of the way. And this tool here lets me cut seams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a C on the top of it. And then I'm going to cut another C this way. So I've got a C and a C. And on the opposite side, I'm going to put another C. And this may seem strange, but this will let this unwrap and lay out flat like a cross. I'm going to press 3 on my keyboard. We'll go to Polygons. I'm going to select it. And I'm going to go back down. And this is expand to seams. It's just going to select the whole box. Then I'm going to go to Mapping, Unfold Mapping. And it lays the box out flat like this. This means that each face will have its own piece of the picture. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to move it up here. So this is my noon. And each time I put another object, I'm just going to slowly orbit, put them around this piece. I'm going to right-click, convert to editable poly. That's going to make this object save its unwrap. Leave isolation. I'm going to go to the barrel. Now, instead of going here and clicking down and going all the way to Unwrap Uvw, I'm going to press X, which will bring up the search bar. And I'm going to type in UNWR and just press Enter. It's a faster way to go through this entire menu. Now, its sections are going to be incorrect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say Endure Seams, and I want to draw seams myself. So I'm going to go, instead of this way, I can click and go point, 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 and I can hold Alt and I can get rid of them. But if I know I'm going to do a lot of this, I'm going to go to this point to point. It lets me click, and it'll connect between them. And I'm just going to cut the top and bottom off of this, like that. And then I'm going to make a line going down to connect them. Alt-Q to go to isolate. And just make sure that you didn't get any weird lines. Turn that off. Now I'm going to press 3 to go to Polygons. I'm going to open the UV editor. That's this piece. And I'm going to tell it, select everything all the way up to the blue lines. This piece says expand polygon selection to seams. So wherever I cut these, it's just going to grab. And now I'm going to tell this to cut these areas and lay it out flat. So mapping, unfold. I'm just going to lay it out nicely like that. This is my third object. I'm going to set it here. And I'm going to grab these ones at the top, and I'm going to hold Control, select them like this. If you have a lot of flat surfaces, you can still come up here and do by angles, and it'll grab them like that. And anything that's completely flat, I'm just going to go to Mapping, Flatten Mapping. Scoot it over here. Grab these. Sometimes it's just faster to do this and go up. If you've got to do this a lot, it won't save you. The other one will save you a lot of time. Flatten mapping, okay? And now this picture and this picture aren't the same size. That means if I put a picture here and a picture here, the boards on this section will be bigger than the boards on this one. And I could check that by clicking here and going to Texture Checker. And you see the F6 here is much bigger than the D's here. And what I need are the numbers and boxes to be about the same sizes. So I'm just going to select it. And if I look, I have some references. This polygon, this side right here should fit here. See where it's turning blue? So if I take this and I click this, this lets me rotate by grabbing an edge, scale by grabbing this. I can hold Control and scale proportionally. I'm just going to make sure that these two edges line up. They don't have to be perfect, but I want them to be somewhat right. And now these letters and these letters are the same size. We'll do the same for this one. Holding Control to move it, scale proportionally. And I'm going to imagine there's an invisible line going across here. I'm just going to try to put it right here. Right click, convert to editable poly. Exit isolation. I'm going to go to my shield, Alt Q, X to bring up search, and then unwrap, and then press enter. Where it draws its lines are a little strange. I'm going to turn them off. And I'm going to draw the lines. I'm just going to press 2, and I'm going to double click to grab that. And I'm going to say, this tool right here will just convert that to a seam. I'm going to put another seam right here, all the way around. If I double click and it stops, it's going to stop because there's no line going here. But I'm just going to hold down Control and double click again until I get it all the way across. I'm going to convert that to a seam. I think that'll work. Now, this edge is a special case because it's not quite hard enough. If this edge were hard and sharp, like at a 45-degree angle, I would need to put a seam there. But because it's curved slightly, I think I can lay it out flat. So I'm going to press 3 to go to polygons. Or in this little menu, I can go vertex edge polygon. Do not use this box. This box will let you rotate with one hand, but it will actually make you much weaker at using 3ds Max. You should always have your left hand on Alt, Control, Shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, and WE, move, rotate, scale, because it's the optimal way to use the program. I'm going to select this top piece, and I'm going to say grab to seams. And we've seen a couple of ways to unwrap. We've seen flatten mapping, anything that's flat, unfold, anything that can just lay out and roll, kind of like cutting a toilet paper roll. And now we're going to try a new one. This one very likely could still use a flatten map, but we're going to use a pelt. And a pelt is going to pull the edges like skinning something. It's going to put it in a frame, and when I hit start pelt, it's going to drag it towards the edge, and it's going to distort it. And then I'm going to hit relax, and what relax is going to do is it's going to let those edges naturally pull together so it's not distorted. And hit commit. So I'm going to scoot that there. I'm going to grab this section, grab those sections there. I'm going to go to pelt, start relax. Now, this error, where it destroyed the unwrap here, is an error with one of 3ds Max's unwrap features. I'm just going to select this. Where'd you go? Polygon. Just grab all of that. Just going to start pelt, start relax. And in the relax settings, there's this unfold 3D optimize. If I turn it to polygon angles, it will end the error problem that keeps showing up in this version of Max. Scoot it up here. See how it stops messing with the other pieces we've already unwrapped. Now the bottom's flat, so all I've got to do is just say mapping, flat mapping. And now I want these all to be the right size. And whenever I check, I can see pretty quickly that these numbers are too small. I'm just going to hit Control A and select all of this. Tools, Pack UVs. It's going to ask me some questions. Normalize cluster, rescale, rotate cluster, fill holes. I'm just going to hit OK. I'm just going to put them all to be relatively the right size. And since I had 1, 2, 3, I'm going to put the next one here, imagining an invisible line going down. Convert to editable poly. Exit isolation. Now I'm going to go to the sword. X, unwrap. You only need to make one sword, but you want to be aware of how to make the different types. Open UV editor. Disable map seams. Alt Q. And now I'm going to grab this. Just holding Control to select more. And pelt. Relax. Turn off polygon by angles. Way worse. Try it again. Switch you here for a second. Do the same to the other side. Make sure I grab this tiny section here. I forgot. Pelt. I'm going to grab this and add this little section to it. Start pelt, start relax. You didn't grab these sections. I'm going to get rid of this seam. I'm going to press 2. And we go to seams. I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm just going to pull these out. So 3ds Max will stop cutting there. Press 3. Now I can pelt again. Get those sections back. Now, if you see, I can't get this to go straight up and down. That's because my rotation snap or angle snap is on. I'm going to press this button or the A button to turn it off. And I'm going to put these exactly on top of each other. What this will let me do is in Photoshop, I can just paint one sword and the other will be painted as well. So I'm going to use the same picture to do double the work. I'm just going to click here and I'm just going to move these. I'm going to press 1 on my keyboard. I'm going to move them on top of each other. Now I can select them, and if I can go to these, this is just going to align horizontally, align vertically, just as a little bit quicker. They don't have to be perfect. It just, that section up there will make more sense when it's like easier in Photoshop for me to deal with. All right. And I'm going to click, and I'm going to take the rest of this sword, like all this stuff, and I'm just going to shrink it down like this, and you'll see how it's got this weird distortion. That'll tell me that I haven't unwrapped that section. I'm going to grab these top bits like this. I'm just going to say mapping, flatten mapping, hit OK. Just screw to the side, grab these sections, mapping, flatten mapping, screw them to the side, grab these, because they're flat, just flatten map them, screw them over here, Z to center the camera on it. Mapping, flatten mapping, screw to the side. Now this piece is just the cylinder again. So I'm going to press 2. I'm going to go to point to point. I'm just going to go around like this, separating it from the object above it. You'll find that almost every object is just a combination of the objects we're making in this. So no matter how complicated something gets, they all pretty much follow the same rules. I'm going to cut this bottom section off. I'm just going to go to edges, I'm going to double click like this. I'm going to keep double clicking until I get all the way around it by holding Control. Make seam, and do the same thing here. That's wrong, so I'm going to hold Alt. Grab this side too, hold Alt, cut those off. Seam. I'm going to put a seam right here where people won't notice it as much. I'm going to put one on the opposite side like this. And I'm just going to press 3 to go to polygon. Expand, grab all of those. I need one seam going through the side, so I'm just going to click here. Try to hide the seam over here. 3. I'm going to go to mapping, unfold mapping. It's just like the barrel. Screw over here. I'm going to grab this top piece, seam, and this is pretty much flat. So I'm just going to say mapping, flatten mapping. Screw it over here. This, expand, and this one I'm going to say unfold mapping because it's more like a cylinder. Same with this one. The thing is, pelt map will work for any of these options. You can just use pelt map if you like. The only thing is, pelt map requires a couple of steps when some of these only require one step. I'm going to select this, and I'm just going to go mapping, flatten mapping. Now, all of these are wildly different sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scoot this one over. I'm going to grab all of these, and I'm going to say Tools, Pack UVs. Now I've got to get the sword to be the same size. So I'm just going to find this angle, grab these blades. I'm going to press A to get my angle snap back on so that I can make sure that it's perfectly to 90 degrees. So down here, I'm just going to try to line these up because this edge goes to this one. There we go. Now I don't want to paint the sword on its side. So I'm just going to go over here, put it back to 90. And I'm going to select all of it. No, I think I'm just going to grab all of this. Shrink it all down by holding Control to keep it proportionate. Here. So I'm going to shrink it a little bit more. Anything that's outside of these edges, even by a single pixel, will not be read. So I want to make sure that everything has just a little bit of room around the edges. And I did 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I'm here. So I'm just going to scoot this down, imagining there's an invisible line here. Right-click, convert to editable poly. Exit isolation. I'm going to unwrap this sword, Alt-Q, X, unwrap. 2, 3. I'm going to turn off map seams. Open my UV editor. Press 3. And I could probably do a flat map. I'm going to do pelt. Take it up. Start pelt, stop pelt. This means setting this on optimize. Hopefully they'll have this fixed by the time watching it. See how it took this edge away? We will see. For speed's sake, I'm not going to line all of these up. I'm just showing the same techniques. And because they're separate, there's actually a plane in here that's hidden. And it's going to be hard to get to that one. And so this is why we like to attach things after we're done. But I left a little space there. Mapping, flat mapping. Scoot it over here. Now there's a face here. Now this object is just a box stretched out. We already know how to open a box. I'm going to press 2 to go to edges. And I'm going to cut some seams. I'm going to cut a C like this. And then I'm going to cut another C going this way. 1, 2, 3. And on the other side of that C, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Press 3 to go to polygons. Expand all the way. I'm going to go mapping. And I'm going to go unfold mapping. I'm just going to unwrap it in that cross shape, allowing for a really clean unwrap. Now, cylinders, I'm going to go to 2. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to cut a piece in here. Same thing down here. I'm going to try to hide the seam through here, like this. I'm going to put one on the other side. And I'm going to cut this top section off. Just double click. Now I need a seam going through the side here. Press 3 to go to polygons. Select. Mapping. Unfold. Unfold. And if I want to attach two faces to each other, say I want to put these back together, if I press 2 and I go to an edge, it'll tell me where that edge connects. I'm going to press 3. I'm just going to rotate this 180. It says 2. If I hold this edge, they want to connect. So what I'm going to do is hit stitch. I'm going to just put them together like that. Back to 3. And the other pieces just do the opposite, like this one breaks those sections. This, select, and because this is so curvy or kind of organic, I'm going to use pelt, start relax, scoot to the side, pelt. Anything that's organic or curvy, pelt is usually the best. Flat pieces like this, mapping, flatten mapping. And now I'm gonna have a lot of trouble unwrapping that section. There's just no good way to grab it. The first thing I'm doing is I'm just gonna Control A. Let's just select all the things I know that I've unwrapped. Just scoot them off to the side a little bit. So that's the only thing that's left. I know that it's flat. Now I'm going to grab all of this. I'm going to say mapping or tools, pack UVs. I'm going to put these blades on top of each other. I would spend more time. If I hadn't already done it at once. I'm just going to put these in here. Find a spot to hide them. Not really hide them, but optimally put them together. And I think we're here now. Just going to put it right here. Convert to editable poly. Exit isolation. And now for the bag. Alt Q to go to isolation mode. X, unwrap. Turn off map seams. 2 to go to edges. I'm going to slice a piece in there. I'm going to cut this section here. Yeah, I think that would be the best spot. I'm going to, because this is a hard edge, I'm going to cut one here. And I'm going to, I think that's all right. And now I'm going to cut this bag point-to-point seams. Click. I'm just going to go down like this. Make sure I didn't cut anything I didn't want. I'm going to press 3, grab this section, expand, pelt map, because this is so organic. Make sure that I have relax by poly angles, start pelt, start relax. And make sure by checking my textures that these aren't warped and distorted. If you do this wrong, this will happen. And then whatever picture you put on it will be distorted. So if it's too big or too small, it'll have weird distortions. There is no way to get a flat image to be perfectly mapped to an object that is 3D. It's a problem they had with maps forever. No one's ever completely solved it. But these are some of the best ways we've found. Pelt, start pelts. Grab the bottom. And don't be afraid of these icons all over 3ds Max. Each one of them are a superpower. They give us more power. Each one of them will make your life a little bit easier. So try not to see them as fear. Just going to try to match these polygons up. Yeah, that's right. Top section, pelt, and you'll get an instinct for what needs to be done with each of these unwrap modifications. It just takes practice. Pelt will never fail you, but because it has multiple clicks, sometimes it's not easier. I'm just going to grab all this, tools, pack UVs. Now the pack is great, but it leaves all the pieces like this piece right here. Doesn't need to be its own section. I want this object to be the same. I want to paint one object and have both sides look the same. So I'm just going to overlap them. And I'm going to turn off. By clicking this, I get rid of that background picture. I'm going to scoot you down here. The more time you spend, the better this will be. As quickly as possible. And now we're over here. Imagine there's an invisible line going this way. Let's scoot it here. Convert to editable poly. Now, I believe that's all the objects unwrapped. I'm going to, let's see. Now I'm going to combine all of their unwraps into one thing. You don't need to do this every time, but if I've got a bunch of objects and I know they're going to be in one piece, it makes my life easier in Photoshop. So I'm going to select something like this plane, and I'm going to go to editable poly. And I'm going to press 5 to get to object or element mode. I'm going to go to attach. I'm just going to click each one of these. I'm going to press 1 twice to leave this. I'm going to press X, Unwrap Uvw. I'm going to turn off map scenes. Open UV editor. And you'll see by doing this, I've laid them out separately so I don't have to go to war with them the same way I would. If they were all on top of each other, it would have been a lot of trouble. I'm just going to take texture checker, make sure that they're all of similar sizes. So the swords, both swords at the same time, speed this up. Bags. In the bag. I'm holding control so that it doesn't squish like this. The more accurate, the better at making these the same size, but making them perfect is very difficult as long as they're not wildly different sizes. That's when you get into problems. Those are close enough. Shield. Holding control. Crate's fine. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these on one piece so that I can texture them in Photoshop next time. Just going to grab all of this. Just put them a little bit closer together. Not so close that I can't grab them easily. And I actually don't need this plane to be quite so large. I'm just trying to find a size that they'll all fit onto this. Now I'm going to optimize everything. I'm going to grab this sword. I'm going to turn off this grid, clicking this button. I'm going to press A to turn off my angle tool so I can rotate this evenly. Like this. And this would be important to make sure that these line up properly. you would want to take your time and make sure everything is done correctly. So I'm going to scoop this stuff up here. And I don't want to leave big empty spots, so I'm just going to take that. This big flat spot's leaving open pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab spots. I'm just going to put things in there. Alt to make it deselect sections. I'm just trying to optimally use my UVs. Here. Shield. I'm actually going to put this section back into the middle. If you move something about 10-15%, you're fine. More than that, you don't want to do. But I just want it to make it easier for me to texture it inside Photoshop. I want to put pieces together so I know what they are. They're called UV islands. Just trying to figure out an optimal way to lay this out. What I want is the least amount of empty space when I'm done. Because empty space is resolution on the picture I'm not using. I shrunk this down, so I'm just making it larger. And I'm very likely just going to take this stuff and fill it into these holes. I'm going to rotate this cross shape. It's not getting better. I'm actually going to break these arms off these sections. I'm just going to hit break so that I can put it up here. I'm going to do the same with this one. So I'm going to give this its size back. I'm going to check them to make sure they're all pretty similar sizes, the numbers. Now, what I want is to get this section here into Photoshop with these lines so I can draw on top of them next time. So I'm going to go to Tools, Render UV Template. I'm going to tell this to be 2048 by 2048 pixels. And I'm going to go to Render UV Template. This is what it'll look like inside Photoshop. I'm going to hit Save. I'm going to make sure new folder. I'm going to call this 6 objects. Inside, I'm going to go and make some new folders. I'm going to call this one Maps or Textures. Max Saves. Maps. I'm going to call this one 6 Objects Lines. And I just put lines at the end of it whenever I know that it's a file that I'm just using it for its lines and I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to go to a PNG because a PNG will have an alpha channel, which will give me a transparency, meaning I don't have to cut out the lines. And hit OK. Close this. And to lock all this down, I'm going to right click, convert to editable poly. And that just saves the unwrap. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to hit Save As, Desktop, 6 objects, max saves, 6 objects. And I'm going to call this 5/17/22_1. And what this will do is I know that this is the name of the object, the date I was working on, and save 1. I want to save about every 30, 45 minutes. So in case something happens, I don't lose too much. Okay, next time we're going to be texturing these objects inside of Photoshop. And I will see you then.